The veteran tasered for waiting at a bus stop. What's the worst thing that could happen whilst you're sat waiting for a bus? Missing it? Being late for an appointment? How about getting 50,000 volts pumped through your body by a police officer who thinks you look a bit dodgy? Because that's exactly what happened to Master Sergeant Danny Torres. And what came next is absolutely mental. Right? Picture this. It's a normal Tuesday morning in Sacramento. People rushing about, heading to work, living their lives. And there's this bloke sat quietly on a bench at a bus stop. He's not causing any aggro, not bothering anyone. Just ... waiting for the bus that'll take him to his medical appointment at the Veterans Center. Sounds simple enough, doesn't it? Well, buckle up. Because what's about to happen will absolutely do your head in. This bloke is Danny Torres. 38 years old. Former Army Ranger with 15 years of service under his belt. 3 combat tours. A chest full of medals that he keeps tucked away in a drawer because drawing attention as you aren't really his thing anymore. When you look at him, you see an average guy in a knackered leather jacket and faded jeans. You do you and see the elite soldier who led reconnaissance teams through some of the most dangerous terrain in Afghanistan and Iraq. Danny's pushed on this weathered metal bench on Riverside Avenue in the older part of downtown Sacramento. You know, the area where the fancy coffee shops and overpriced flats haven't quite taken over yet, and working class people still use public transport. He chose this route because it goes straight to the Veterans Medical Center, where he has got weekly therapy sessions and monthly checkups for his PTSD and chronic pain. In his rucksack, he's carrying his appointment paperwork, a water bottle, an anxiety medication that helps him cope in crowded spaces. He checks his phone for the 3rd time. The bus should be arriving in 10 minutes. He has learned that sticking to routine and being punctual helps manage the symptoms that still wake him up most nights, reaching for weapons that aren't there anymore. Now, let me give you a bit of background on Danny. He enlisted at 23, fresh out of university, drawn in by the Army Ranger's reputation for elite training and challenging missions. He found his calling leading teams through hostile territory, where his calm decision-making under pressure saved countless lives. But then ... that mortar attack happened, the one that ended his military career. It killed his team medic and left Danny with traumatic brain injury symptoms that still mess with his concentration and memory. Some days are all right. Other days, not so much. Crowds and unexpected loud noises can trigger flashbacks that transport him straight back to that dusty outpost where Sergeant Martinez died in his arms. His veterans rating reflects these invisible wounds that civilian employers just don't get. Job interviews end quickly when Danny mentions his medical appointments or tries to explain gaps in his work history. His weekly therapy sessions with Dr. Sarah Kim at the Veterans Center have become his lifeline, the one consistent thing in a life that often feels completely adrift. She helps him process the guilt of surviving when others didn't, and the challenge of finding meaning in a world that moves too fast and cares too little about the wars still raging in his mind. Today's appointment focuses on managing anxiety in public spaces, which is precisely why he's forcing himself to take the bus instead of calling an expensive taxi. He's trying to improve. He's doing the work. Then, along comes Officer Tom Bradley. Bradley's cruising down Riverside Avenue in his patrol car, scanning for anything that looks out of place in his patch. He has been a copa for 8 years, and prides himself on keeping the streets clean of undesirables who make business owners and commuters uncomfortable. When he spots Danny sitting motionless on that bus stop bench, his instincts kick in. And by instincts, I mean prejudice. Bradley pulls his patrol car to the curb and gets out, his hand already resting on his utility belt. He clocks Danny's worn clothes, the way he sat slightly hunched forward, and that 1,000-yard stare that Bradley associates with drug users or people who are mentally unstable. He approaches with the swagger of someone who's used to immediate compliance from anyone he confronts. Bradley orders Danny to move along, claiming that loitering at bus stops is prohibited and that several business owners have complained about vagrants making customers uncomfortable. Danny looks up, confused, and calmly explains that he is waiting for the bus to his veterans appointment and has every right to use public transport facilities. The explanation doesn't satisfy Bradley, who's already decided that Danny represents a problem that needs solving. He demands identification whilst telling Danny to stand up and put his hands where they can be seen. Danny complies slowly, his military training automatically assessing the situation for potential threats. and escape routes. When Danny reaches for his wallet to provide ID, Bradley completely misinterprets the movement as aggressive. The officer starts shouting commands that contradict each other: keep your hands visible, but also produce identification. Danny tries to de-escalate using the calm voice he perfected during tense negotiations overseas. But Bradley's adrenaline is already pumping. Without any further warning, Bradley draws his taser and fires. The electrodes hit Danny square in the chest, sending 50,000 volts coursing through his body. Danny collapses onto the concrete, his muscles seizing uncontrollably as electricity overwhelms his nervous system. Witnesses at nearby shops stop and stare as the veteran convulses on the pavement, completely helpless and unable to understand what's just happened or why. Danny's body hits the concrete hard, his muscles contracting violently as the taser's current takes over. The pain is unlike anything he experienced, even during combat burning, all-consuming fire that makes every nerve scream. But worse than the physical agony is the complete helplessness, the total loss of control that triggers every survival instinct he developed during 15 years of military service. When the electricity finally stops, Danny lies on the pavement, gasping for air, his heart racing and his mind struggling to process what's just occurred. The concrete scrapes against his cheek and he can taste blood where he bit his tongue during the convulsions. People stand around staring, some recording with their phones, but nobody moves to help. The incident crashes through Danny's carefully constructed mental defenses, like shrapnel through armor. Suddenly, he's back in Afghanistan, pinned down by enemy fire, watching his teammates get cut down by an attack that came without warning. The helplessness he felt then mirrors what he is experiencing now. The realization that training and preparation mean absolutely nothing when violence strikes without justification. Danny's breathing becomes shallow and rapid as a full-blown panic attack sets in. The street sounds fade into the background noise of his own pulse, thundering in his ears. He wants to stand up, to defend himself, to do something other than lie there like a victim, but his body won't respond properly. Officer Bradley stands over Danny's prone form, radioing, calling for backup and claiming he has subdued a potentially dangerous individual who is acting erratically at a bus stop. He describes Danny as uncooperative and possibly under the influence of drugs, justifying the use of force as necessary for public safety and officer protection. Danny struggles to sit up, his muscles still twitching from the electrical shock. He tries to explain through labored breathing that he's a veteran waiting for the bus, that he's got identification and appointment paperwork in his rucksack. But Bradley orders him to stay down, threatening to use the taser again if he moves without permission. Witnesses begin to gather, some recording the incident on their phones, whilst others call out that the man was just sitting quietly waiting for the bus. A middle-aged woman approaches to offer Danny medical assistance, but Bradley waves her away, claiming the scene isn't secure. Danny's panic attack intensifies as more police sirens wail in the distance. The sound triggers combat memories of incoming artillery, and he begins to dissociate, his mind retreating to protect itself from trauma. That feels far too familiar. He keeps trying to tell Bradley about his military service, about the veteran's appointment, but the words come out fragmented and confused. Bradley searches Danny's rucksack, finding the Veterans Center paperwork, but dismisses it as possibly nicked or fake. He has committed to his initial assessment of the situation and refuses to consider that he might have made a catastrophic mistake. 2 more patrol cars arrive, and Danny finds himself surrounded by officers who see only what Bradley's told them, to see a dangerous individual who needed to be subdued. The situation spirals as Danny's PTSD symptoms make him appear increasingly unstable to officers who have absolutely no training in recognizing combat trauma. Now ... Here's where things get properly interesting. A black SUV with government plates pulls up to the scene with military precision, followed immediately by 2 more identical vehicles. 6 men in dark suits step out, their bearing and coordination immediately recognizable as federal agents or military personnel. The lead agent approaches Officer Bradley with credentials that make the local copper's face go absolutely pale. Special Agent Marcus Webb identifies himself as Pentagon security and explains that they've been monitoring a signal from Danny's medical alert device, which automatically activated when his heart rate spiked during the taser incident. The device issued to high-risk veterans with severe PTSD sends immediate alerts to both veterans, medical staff, and military liaison offices when triggered by extreme stress or medical emergencies. Agent Webb calmly explains that Master Sergeant Danny Torres is a decorated Army Ranger with top-secret clearance, who's currently under Pentagon medical monitoring due to his service-connected injuries. The taser attack on a veteran in psychological crisis has triggered protocols designed to protect military personnel from civilian law enforcement overreach. Bradley tries to justify his actions, claiming Danny appeared dangerous and uncooperative, but Agent Webb cuts him off sharp. He points out that Danny was clearly identified in federal databases as a combat veteran receiving ongoing treatment, and that any competent officer should have recognized signs of PTSD rather than escalating the situation with violence. The Pentagon team immediately takes control of the scene, providing Danny with medical attention whilst documenting everything for their report. Agent Webb makes it crystal clear that this incident will be investigated at the federal level, with potential charges including assault on a federal military veteran and violation of disability protections. Officer Bradley realizes his career is finished as federal agents begin collecting witness statements and reviewing the body camera footage that will expose his unnecessary use of force against a vulnerable veteran. Agent Webb ensures Danny receives immediate medical care from Pentagon medical personnel rather than local paramedics, who might not understand combat trauma treatment. Danny's breathing stabilizes as the trained professionals help him through the panic attack using techniques specifically developed for veterans with PTSD. Officer Bradley faces immediate suspension pending a federal investigation into his use of excessive force against a disabled veteran. The Pentagon's intervention carries weight that local police administrators can't ignore, especially when it involves potential civil rights violations and assault on military personnel. The incident report will be forwarded to the Department of Justice, the Veterans Inspector General, and congressional offices that oversee veteran affairs. Agent Webb explains to Danny that this level of response exists specifically to protect veterans from discrimination and violence, ensuring that their service isn't forgotten when they face civilian law enforcement. Danny's therapist, Dr. Kim, arrives within hours to provide crisis intervention and help him process the trauma of being attacked while seeking medical care. The incident becomes part of his treatment record, with additional resources allocated to help him cope with this new layer of psychological injury. The Pentagon team arranges transport to Danny's veteran's appointment and ensures he has got direct contact information for reporting any future harassment or discrimination. Agent Webb personally guarantees that Officer Bradley will face consequences for his actions, sending a clear message that veterans deserve protection rather than persecution. Local news coverage of the federal response helps other veterans understand that they've got powerful advocates willing to intervene when civilian authorities overstep their bounds. Danny makes it to his appointment 3 hours late, but Dr. Kim adjusts her schedule to accommodate the crisis session he desperately needs. The taser attack has reopened wounds that were slowly healing, but having federal agents treat him with respect and urgency helps counterbalance the trauma of Bradley's assault. The incident forces Danny to confront how vulnerable veterans remain in civilian society, where their service can be invisible and their symptoms misunderstood as threats rather than injuries. Too many officers like Bradley see veterans struggling with PTSD as problems to be solved with force, rather than human beings deserving compassion and medical care. But the Pentagon's swift response proves that Danny's military family hasn't abandoned him. The agents who arrived within minutes represent a system designed to protect those who protected America, ensuring that veterans' blood was unshed in foreign lands only to be spilled on domestic streets by ignorant authorities. As Danny rides home in the federal vehicle, he feels something he has unexperienced since leaving the Army: the security of knowing someone has got his back. Sometimes it takes the Pentagon to remind local coppers that American veterans are still worth defending, even after they come home from war. This story is a powerful reminder that our veterans should end to have to fight battles at home after fighting for their country abroad. If this story's got you thinking, if it's made you angry or moved you, hit that like button and subscribe. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you see a veteran being mistreated, speak up. They fought for you. It's time we fought for them. Look after yourselves and respect those who served.